Yo, what's going on, CZN fam? I'm Sue, and last night was the official launch of Chaos Zero Nightmare. And a huge number of you came out and showed your love and support while I was streaming it, and for that, I want to thank you. That said, there were two questions that felt like they were asked like nearly every single minute, at least for the first several hours that the game was out. And so for this video, I want to answer those two questions so that way I can kind of just point you all to this video in the future. And the first question is, what should I play with this specific character? And we'll talk more about that in the moment. That is going to basically be the massive bulk of the video. We'll get to that in a second. The second one, which is much easier to answer, is should I reroll, or I got this as my start, should I keep or should I reroll? And the answer to that question is going to be entirely up to you. Many of the best characters in Chaos Zero Nightmare were nerfed from the closed beta, and currently no one is at the end game, so no one knows what you really even need at this point. There's no way for us to formulate like a tier list or who's the best character or any of that. It's just way too early to tell. So my advice to you, if you do decide to reroll, is that you should do it for a character that you think looks cool, that you think you'll have fun with, somebody that you will really enjoy your time with. Otherwise, just reroll until you get a start that has multiple 5 stars in it, all right? And if you do decide to reroll, please consider using this video's sponsor, which is LDPlayer. LDPlayer is a free Android emulator that lets you play your favorite mobile games on PC. I personally have been using LDPlayer for over 6 years at this point, and I truly think that they are the best emulator on the market. In the past, they've been my go-to for making Epic 7 videos, including those that are on my alternate account, which were used to make my Abyss Guide series that you find here on the channel. With LDPlayer, you can easily reroll for a character of your choice in Chaos Zero Nightmare. All you need to do is download LDPlayer and install Chaos Zero Nightmare. After that, you can use the LD multiplayer to run multiple instances of the game and find the character that you want 2 to 4 times faster. So if you're looking to speedrun your reroll process in CZN, check out LDPlayer, linked in this video's description. Thanks LDPlayer for sponsoring the video, and now let's talk about some team compositions. Okay, before we jump into this section of the video, 4 things that I want to point out. Number 1, long video. Use the timestamps to hear me yap about whatever character that you are interested in hearing about. Number 2, I will go over any changes that I noticed about the character from the beta. Number 3, all the teams I recommend in this video are going to be free to play. Basically, I'm going to give you 4 stars. Like, I'm not going to talk about what I think the optimal team is for Khalipe or Rin or whatever with like all 5 stars. Like, we're just not doing that here. This is just simply to help people who are completely lost jump into the game, get something that works, is accessible, and super fun, so that way they can enjoy the game as quickly as possible. And finally, number 4, these are not optimal teams that I'm going to be giving you. These are day 1 teams. A week from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, a lot of these things might not even be super relevant, right? No one currently knows what end game is like. Everything that I'm talking about here in this video is my own personal 2 cents, my own opinion. You don't necessarily have to agree with it. It is based entirely on my time with the live game, time with the closed beta, and almost 20 years of competitive card game experience. So if I get something wrong, I'm sorry, don't roast me, okay? Anyways, let's start with the first character, which is going to be Luke. So Luke is a character that essentially is going to want to get critical hits in order for him to generate handgun bullets to kind of do his thing. And for that reason, I'm going to choose Maribelle and Cassius as a good starting formation for the character. So the 2 key cards in Luke's kit are going to be Rapid Fire, which if it lands a critical hit, will generate a handgun bullet. So either a Magnum, Silver, Uranium, or Tracer shot. You will get those to your hand. You want to generate bullets as much as possible, so that way you could kind of get the bonuses from the other 3 cards that are in his kit, like Seize the Opportunity, Dance of the Demon, right, and Finish Your Round. The other card in his kit that generates handgun bullets is Stealth Reload. If you do not crit on Rapid Fire or you do not find Stealth Reload, the character effectively doesn't really do anything. So in order to make that happen, Cassius is basically going to be his best starting teammate. So you will get access to Devil Dice, which will give you access to more card draw, which will help you find one of your 2 key cards. Shuffle can discard your hand and give you a new hand in case it doesn't have one of your key cards. And then Joker, I still think, even with the Nurse, is the best skill card in the game because it finds you exactly the card that you need. So with Cassius and Luke, you'll basically always have a steady stream of handgun bullets. The problem with having Cassius as a teammate is that his healing is very inconsistent, so he cannot be your only sustain. So for that reason, I'm choosing Maribelle, so that way when your hand bricks, you have a bruiser that does decent damage and also can hold down the fort with all the various different shields that are in her kit. Now, for our second character here to talk about, we have Khalipe. So Khalipe was completely reworked here in the beta, and when I get to actually showing you the team that I'm going to recommend for her, you'll be able to see what was actually changed. But basically, she's not the massive, like, bruiser AoE DPS that she was. She is more tank focused, and her AoE damage has been scaled back significantly, and Celestial has been removed from some of her cards. So we'll go over that in just a second. But for right now, I'm going to recommend as a starting team for her, if I could find the character, Khalipe, Beryl, and Mika here. All right, so here are what we have for Khalipe. Vulture Ejection had its damage reduced. Great Sword Aquila got a buff in the fact that it is got its cost reduced, but that's also a nerf because the actual damage it deals is reduced and it no longer triggers Celestial. Overpower no longer has Retain and Celestial, I believe, and then Absolute Protection used to be full salvo, which is like her big attack, and also Rally had its shield reduced. So like just in general across the board, pretty much all of Khalipe's cards are worse, but I still think she is a very competent character. Now, what you're trying to do with this character is play high cost cards, and some of her cards like Vulture Ejection have Retain and sit in your hand. What other character is a character that plays high cost cards and wants to have cards sit in their hand? That's Beryl, which is basically the character that everyone is going to be getting at the start from the event missions. So you have things like Charge Launcher, which will trigger all of the Celestials here in Khalipe's kit and provide, you know, decent damage. You have Charge Shot that does very much the same thing. Heavy Weapon Specialist can also generate a copy of Charge Shot, so you'll have extra copies in your deck. And then Guilty Pleasure gives you some additional card draw. So basically, Khalipe is like your defensive character that has some damage, whereas Beryl is kind of like your offensive threat that triggers all of the cards and has some utility. And to round things out, I decided to go with Mika because everyone has access to her. She will provide some incidental healing, kind of keep the stress levels low. She also will generate AP passively with her wave mechanic, as well as Source of Water, which will give you action points. Her ego skill also gives you action points, so that could help pay for these turns where you might be able to go like 2 copies of Opening Found and a Charge Shot and trigger all the Celestials here on Khalipe. So I think that's a pretty well-rounded team overall. Next up, we have my girl, Magna. And the only change here for Magna from the actual beta, let me just go over here and just kind of jump into it with 3 characters so you can show you, is that Glacial Iron Fist here was buffed. Other than that, there are no changes that I can see. I haven't looked through all of her epiphanies that are different. She's basically the same character that she was in the beta. And that is to say that she basically works on any team. Like, you just pick Magna and then your choice of 2 DPS or like another tank and a DPS or 2 tanks or 2 supports. Like, pretty much anything that you want to play with Magna will just work. She's just generically the most usable character in the entire game. And that's why I think that if you were going to reroll at all, Magna is probably the safest bet because she feels not necessarily the most future-proof, but like it's really hard to mess up Magna. Like, the character just generates a ton of defense and provides you passive damage. Every team needs sustain. She's just good sustain, and you get passive damage out of it. Like, there's not really anything else to say about Magna. She just slots pretty much into any team that you want. So you could just pick Magna and like your 2 other favorite characters, and it probably just works. Next up, we come to Rin, who is a personal favorite character of mine. The only change that Rin received since the beta, and it's a pretty big one, is that her best card here, which I'll just kind of like throw 3 teammates here so like you can see it, Destruction, no longer tutors cards of hers from the deck. That has been moved to an epiphany now, right? This one here, own 1 attack cards, right? Or draw 1 own attack cards. The base version of the card no longer draws a copy of Rin's actual cards. So that makes her a bit more reliant on ways to smooth out her deck. In case you don't know her playstyle, you essentially are going to try to find cards that obtain Dark Cloud stance, which buffs all of her other attacks. And then in order to maintain the stance, you have to keep playing Rin cards. Once you're in the stance, you lose it the second you play a card from a different character. So you want to play all of your team's setup cards first and foremost, then use Dark Cloud stance, and then proceed to chain out with Rin's actual abilities. Unless, of course, you're using it to set up something like Black Dance, which deals damage according to the number of skill cards that are still left in your hand once you have the stance. So, because Rin no longer has the ability to find her key cards in order to combo off, Cassius is pretty much going to be the no-brainer support here, because of things like Devil Dice giving you a chance to find more Rin cards, Shuffle giving you a new hand in case it bricks, and then Joker here, right, being able to find the key card that you actually need. Also note that a good chunk of his cards, half of his deck, are skill cards, and therefore will count towards buffing up Black Dance here for the most amount of damage. Now, the other character that I think is really, really good with Rin is the new reworked Nia. And if you take a look here, Stroke is the only attack card in the entire deck, which means you have 7 cards in your deck that will buff Black Dance, which is a huge, huge boon. And most of Nia's rework cards essentially are card filtering. They're essentially like looting. They are discarding a card to draw a card, so they can kind of get rid of the parts of your deck that you don't want, so that way you could find the specific cards for Rin that you do want in order to actually combo out. So I really think that the new version of Nia works super well with Rin. So I think I would play Nia and Cassius with Rin. And again, as long as you sequence correctly, I think you should be fine with this character. All right. Next up, we come to Orlea, and as far as I can tell, Orlea is completely changed, at least her base kit. I don't know if her epiphany's changed. I know a lot of people were saying that she got reworked, but I couldn't find anything that was changed about her. So if I'm wrong, like, please let me know down in the comment section below. As for a team for Orlea, I like Orlea, Maribelle, and Beryl here. So Orlea is a character that wants to use Sacred Sensor at the start of every single battle in order to generate some of these slimes like Softy, Swifty, and Tuffy. And these give various bonuses. They get stronger the longer they sit in your hand. So she is a healer that basically gets to pop off with damage once her specific slimes sit in her hand for a long enough time. And you also want to generate a really large hand with cards like Annoying. So other characters that kind of do very much the same thing are Beryl. Beryl is a DPS that wants to retain cards in her hand, and she also has some card draw to get you a pretty large hand size. So essentially, the way that it'll work is you'll start your first turn by using Orlea to grab the slimes, and then you'll use a setup character like Maribelle to kind of build up your shields, kind of tank the first turns, and then on the second turn, you could use the Beryl attacks that are in your hand. The third turn, you could go for the Orlea retain cards and possibly refresh them. Fourth turn, go for the Beryl attacks again. Fifth turn, kind of go for the retain cards from Orlea, and so on and so forth. You just kind of bounce back and forth between the two. All the while, Maribelle keeps you kind of sustained with shields and various different counterattacks, and you'll get some incidental healing from Orlea's kit. All right, so after Orlea, we come to Mei-Lin, and Mei-Lin is a striker that cares about low-cost cards and just kind of spamming out these like 0 and 1 cost card attacks. So for this character here, Mei-Lin, I like 2 different teams. I like Mei-Lin, Selena, and Maribelle as a basic team, because Mei-Lin's Flame Dragon's Jewel gives your basic attack cards, your attack cards, 1 passion weakness, as you could say here. It's basically defense shreds targets so that they take more damage from fire characters. So like passively, Mei-Lin increases the damage of fire characters on your team. Selena is a fire off DPS. She kind of gets extra attacks whenever another character on her team attacks a marked target that she applies, and she also shreds the opponent's passion weakness with cards like drone bombing. So like these two just both shred fire defense, and also Selena gives you some bonus damage on all of your Mei-Lin attacks. And then Maribelle also shreds shields with things like Resolute Blitz and Maribelle Shelter Mark II, and is just generally a very good sustain. So this is like a really strong mono fire team that I want to highlight. But there is one other team that I really wanted to talk about here, and that is that the fact that you could sub out either Selena or Maribelle here for a character like Rei. I think Rei is a very underrated character in the current state of CZN. I don't see many people talking about her when they're talking about good characters in this game. Rei is effectively a kind of build your own support. She does a little bit of everything. She is kind of like an off DPS. She has some incidental healing. She has buffs, and she also has some card selection and kind of deck thinning with a card like Snack Time. So she'll help kind of smooth over your draws, provide you a little bit of sustain. But what I really wanted to highlight here is things like Strike of Darkness here, which, as you can see, for one turn you get 100% extra damage on your basic attack cards, and that's pretty much Mei-Lin's entire jam. She wants to be using as many basic attack cards as she possibly can in a turn, so getting a team-wide buff for that is very, very good. And you can look at the epiphanies as well. There's one here that activates all basic cards in your hand, so you could potentially build an entire team around like Rei, Beryl, Mei-Lin, and then just kind of use this Strike of Darkness to kind of run out a flurry of attacks from Mei-Lin and a character like Beryl, and I think that's very, very powerful. So after Mei-Lin, now we come to Veronica, and Veronica, as far as I can tell, doesn't really have any changes whatsoever from the beta as well. So Veronica is kind of like a supporter that generates damage passively. She has a lot of like ways to draw cards, discard cards, and through various different effects, she will generate ballistas in her hand that deal, at the end of the turn, random damage to an enemy. So essentially, you've got essentially a supporter here that passively deals damage. That's the best way for you to actually think about things with this character. Now, as for the team I like playing that is kind of like a basic team for Veronica, I like Nia and Owen, right? So you see here, you have this Outbreak of War. This is going to make it so you gain a ballista every single turn. And at the end of each of your turns, basically when you pass, you will get a attack on a random enemy. And the rest of her kind of deck kind of filters through and finds various different things. You have things that draws cards from other combatants, right? You have whenever another combatant uses a skill, you get to reload, so you generate another ballista. And we already talked about it a little bit with Rin. Nia is a supporter that helps you move through the deck, gives you the sustain that you need, and her deck has 7 skill cards in it, which means that Nia, with Pendant of Resolution, is going to generate a massive amount of ballistas. You're going to get a lot of free damage just for kind of doing your thing, moving through your deck, you know, finding the key cards that you actually want. And the last card here, Owen, the last character, he generates a lot of shields with things like Weapon Block, and his ultimate Gale Strike is just a big old nuke that also generates some shields. So he's like kind of like a makeshift frontliner. The combination of the incidental healing from Nia and the shields that Owen generates is really good. On top of that, he has things like Wind Riding here, which gets his wind charge back from the discard pile to your hand. So you can gain this card back over and over again, and this is kind of like your big buff. So essentially what you're doing is you're using skill cards like this to generate ballistas. Nia is incidentally throwing your wind charge skill into the discard pile. You're going to be picking it back up with Wind Riding. Like, it's kind of like a big pile of synergy, right? Nia and Veronica move through the deck, and then Nia and Owen kind of wombo combo to generate a bunch of free attacks for Owen and free attacks for Veronica. After that, we come to Renoa, who is actually my favorite character to play currently. I was fortunate enough to actually get this character. Renoa's whole gimmick is that she generates these dirge bullets off of her attacks, and they are one-time use bullets, much like Luke's, but unlike Luke's, they don't disappear if you don't use them. In fact, if you end your turn or find a way to put them into the discard pile, they will trigger, which is very, very good. And so you want to try to generate as many dirge bullets as you possibly can and find ways to creatively throw them into the discard pile for free damage, or find a way to pull them back out of the discard pile to cash them in for some kind of big combo, do a hilarious amount of damage to the entire enemy team. Now, for this character, I really like Nia and Cassius. So Echo of Sorrow is the primary way that you generate dirge bullets, as you can see here, right? And when it's moved to the discard pile for any reason, it deals half of its damage to a random enemy. We've already talked about Nia quite a bit here, but her entire kit is draw 1, discard 1, or look at the top 3 cards from your deck and discard 2 of them and put the other one in your hand. Mute Accent, discard 1 card with the highest cost, and a combatant, right? Blah, 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 blah. So her entire kit is all about essentially cycling through the deck by discarding cards to draw cards. So being able to discard cards, especially your dirge bullets, is just free value. You have things like Flower of Devoured Fate to generate more dirge bullets, kind of like put more stuff into your discard pile. Cards like Instant Judgment have epiphanies that turn them into essentially an enhanced bullet here that allows you to just kind of, you know, get more value out of discarding. It's pretty much exactly what you want here. Like, this character just cares about discarding. Nia is just a discard machine that helps move through the deck and kind of gives you some incidental healing. The problem comes when you can't find a way to generate dirge bullets. Like, you can't find Flower of Devoured Fate, or you can't find your Echo of Sorrow, or you just generically have a bad hand. And you probably already know why Cassius is here. So he does exactly, you know, he fixes those two problems, right? Shuffle will find you a card with a dirge bullet if you somehow have a bad hand, or Joker gets you exactly the card you need. Maybe it's something that will, like, there's certain upgrades that Renoa can get that kind of pick up most of the dirge bullets from your discard pile, so you can kind of tutor that to set up a specific combo, do some really crazy things. So Cassius is kind of the setup, Renoa generates the payoff, and then Nia allows you to kind of just like cash in for just more free value. Overall, I think this is a really well-rounded team. I have yet to pull Nia, but the second I do, this is probably going to be my main team for the foreseeable future. I think it's very, very strong, especially for a low-cost team. After that, we come to Hugo. And Hugo's entire thing is that he gains these Commence the Hunt stacks. So essentially, anytime you use an attack, he kind of does a follow-up attack. It's kind of like an enhanced version of Selena's Mark. So you kind of just want to have a high volume of single target attacks in order to kind of just vomit out a bunch of damage. And for him, I really like Tressa and Mika. Right, so as you can see her Hunting Instincts, you'll always start with this in your hand. Whenever another combatant uses an upgrade or a skill card, you're going to gain 1 stack of Commence the Hunt. Every time you attack, you spend 1 stack of Commence the Hunt in order to deal some bonus damage. So what you do with Hugo is you activate Hunting Instincts. You use a character like Mika, who has most of the skill cards in her kit and can generate a ton of extra action points to generate a bunch of stacks. Then you use a character like Tressa to use things like Unsheathed Dagger to create a massive amount of free attacks, and you just kind of systematically throw them out and dismantle the enemy by just cashing in all of your Hugo extra attacks. So basically, Hugo is just bonus damage tacked onto the high volume of attacks that Tressa can actually put out. And then Mika just kind of keeps you topped off and also enables the whole thing by giving you a bunch of extra action points. If you don't like Mika, there are other kind of supporters you could try as well. Cassius probably also works here similarly in the same composition. All right, so after Hugo, we come to the limited character in Haru. And since she's not on the beginner banner, there's a high chance that you have Haru and another 5-star. So she's the only character that I will make a second team recommendation using a specific 5-star for. Now for Haru here, I have Mika as well as Cassius written down. Now Mika, or I should say Haru's entire mechanic here is going to be on this Anchor Shot card. So every time you use the Anchor Shot, it gets stronger. So your entire game plan with Haru is just, how can I find the Anchor Shot? And she has Anchor Pointer in her kit, which will find the Anchor Shot pretty much no matter where it is. That said, your starting deck is like 12 plus cards, and then obviously you need to get this as an epiphany. So at minimum, you're gonna have 13 cards, which means you only have like a little more than like 50% chance to find one of these two pieces in your kit in order to find the Anchor Shot. And we've already been saying it for a bunch of times now at this point. Cassius is pretty much the character that makes everything work if you have a character that needs a specific card to function. So if for whatever reason you don't draw the Anchor Shot or the Anchor Pointer, you use Cassius and his Shuffle and Joker skills to find either of the cards in order for you to keep looping the Anchor Shot, to keep building up stacks on it, to keep generating power. That said, Haru's deck is very expensive. She has 3 2-point cards and then also 3 1-point cards. So she is very, very expensive to do the thing over and over and over again, which is why Mika is here. You get some incidental healing, she generates action points, and allows you to kind of potentially use multiple Anchor Shots in a turn. Now, if you somehow have the character, the other person that I want to talk about here is replacing, where are we, Mika here, for Khalipe as like a different support, right? A different sustain here. So Khalipe obviously is going to give you shields, so she kind of can replace the healing aspect of Mika. but also she is a character that gets paid, gets a lot of extra value for using 2+ cost cards in the deck. And again, Haru is a character that uses a lot of high cost cards. So you have Haru essentially to generate the bonus effects of Khalipe's cards, and then you have Cassius still to find the anchor shot, and then Khalipe could kind of be the shielder or the frontliner to kind of keep the team safe. All right. Next character to talk about here is my boy Kayron. He was my favorite character to play in the beta. Now, Kayron received 2 nerfs that I'll talk about in a second. Let me grab the team that I recommend for him first. So the first is Echo of Futility. If you watched my beta footage of Kayron, you may have noticed I used this card to great effect to completely rip through entire waves of enemies. Sadly, they nerfed it. It's no longer an AoE attack. The floor of the move is higher, right? And the ceiling is still the same, but it's only a single target now because, yeah. So like on one hand, the card is stronger in single target situations like versus bosses, but for general use farming, it's a lot worse. The other thing that they changed about him is that Brand of Annihilation is slightly weaker. It's a little bit. It's not game breaking. Like they just made it slightly weaker because usually this card ends up being free. So just having a free nuke, they felt it was probably too strong. But otherwise, he's still pretty much the same character that he always is. You use cards like Echo of Futility to create futility, which are just useless dead cards in your deck and in your hand. And then you have to find a way to get them out of your deck in order to boost the damage of things like Brand of Annihilation or Black Hole. Or you can use Oath of Vanity in order to upgrade your futilities and turn them into kind of little mini attacks with lifesteal, so on and so forth. So this is a character that needs to generate futility and then immediately find one of his payoffs once he has, you know, kind of spent that futility. So you already know exactly what I'm going to say here. It's Cassius, right? It's the character that just finds the exact piece that you need. If you need to generate futility, you grab Echo. If you need a payoff, you grab your Annihilation or you grab your Black Hole. They go together like peanut butter and jelly. I think they are the best overall options. Now, previously I used to use Magna, but that is a 5-star. So I was looking for a new 4-star alternative, and the reworked Nia has seriously impressed me from a theory crafting standpoint because of all of the crazy things that we have. You have Nia's Curiosity, which is effectively Ponder from Magic the Gathering, although it's probably closer, I guess I would say, to like Malevolent Rumble or like Grapple with the Past, where it's like, it's just look at some cards, choose one, the rest go to the graveyard. And then obviously that's very good for kind of getting around all of the junk that Kayron has, right? So you'll generate a bunch of futility, and then you'll have a bunch of cards in your hand from Nia that are looking to discard a card in order to draw a card. So you can kind of pitch that futility, see some new cards, potentially draw into one of your big bombs. So I really, really like them together. Like the combination of Cassius is like new hand reset and tutor, along with all of the card selection you get from Nia, means that Kayron should just always be humming along. He should almost always see his Oath of Vanities on time. He should always see his payoffs and his setups on time. Next up is Nia, who is pretty much the character. I feel like I've been talking about this entire video. She's just great healing, great card selection, really wants to fill the discard pile in order to set up big combos. I've already talked about a number of 5-stars that work really well with her, but other characters that I think work well with her are the 2 starters here, Tressa and Owen, right? So Tressa is a character that needs to find her unsheathed daggers and then either like Shadow Reload or some of the other cards depending on your epiphanies in order to kind of pop off, right? Maybe you need to find Curse and Unsheathed Dagger at the same time. So the card filtering moving through the deck that Nia provides will allow you to find the pieces that you need with Tressa. And then Owen can function kind of as a frontliner that generates shields. And we've already talked about this previously, but Wind Riding is a card that gets Wind Charge back. So you could kind of pitch your Wind Charge to Nia's cards, use Wind Riding to recall your Wind Charge, and then set up something like a Devastating Wind Slash or a gigantic Gale Strike. After that, we come to Selena here. And for Selena, I like Owen as well as Mika. So another starting kind of squad here. So essentially, Selena has the ability to kind of weaken the defenses of enemies when you hit them with fire characters. So essentially, you want to play her with other fire teammates for things like drone bombing. And then also, she just essentially lends extra damage to any character's single target attack. She basically marks enemies, and then somebody goes in for an attack, and she kind of just follows up, and I think that's really, really good. Owen, I think, is a criminally underplayed, underappreciated character, because he does a lot of, like, really cool and interesting things, right? He has loops that allow him to play AoE attacks over and over again. He gets shields on some of his attacks. He has the ability to kind of increase the hit chance, the hit counts on his attacks, which will kind of like let him spend multiple marks. So I like the synergy between these two characters quite a bit. And then Mika is just here to kind of heal and generate some action points for you. So if this is like a character that you want to play, I think this is a pretty good starting team for her until you end up getting one of the other characters like Mei-Lin, for example. Next up, we have Tressa, who is by far, I think, the best of the starter characters. It's between her or Mika. And honestly, the starting squad that they give you of Tressa, Mika, and Owen is just really, really good. Tressa is very greedy, wants to basically generate as many shadow daggers as possible and use them for her more expensive payoffs. Obviously, that works really, really well with Mika. And then Owen can just kind of function as a frontliner and like just pseudo DPS, right? So that works out pretty well. You could also, if you want to, trade out Mika here for Nia in order to kind of, again, get that card selection, kind of move through the deck and find your Shadow Dagger creation cards that much faster. After that, we come to Amir, which is a character that everybody got for free with the pre-order bonus. So how Amir works is she has this mechanic called metallization. Anytime you generate a shield while you have metallization, she will perform a random extra attack. So as such, she doesn't really do anything unless your team has a high volume of shields. She's not really a main tank per se. I don't think she really can hold the front line in the way that like Maribelle or Khalipe or Magna can. Instead, she's kind of like an off DPS for tanky teams. Like if you're gonna play bruisers, then she's pretty good. So for that reason, I would go for Amir, Maribelle, and Owen as like your free-to-play team. And if you have other 5 stars, like you could sub out like Owen for like Magna or Khalipe if you have it. Basically, if you want to know what to pair with Amir here, just look at the character's deck, right? How many cards are in the deck that say shield percentage? So Maribelle has 1, 2, 3. How many does Owen have? He has 1 and 2. So essentially, if they don't have at least 2 shield cards, it's probably not going to work out, right? Like, for example, Renoa here has a shield card in her deck, but it's only 1. So this is just going to be really, really inconsistent. Honestly, I really, really wish that Amir's starting deck had 1 Rapier and 2 Steel Barriers. I think that would make the character a lot easier to play and fit into more team compositions. But as it stands, I really think you just want to play her in a team that has a lot of shields, can generate a lot of shields. That's pretty much where you want to be playing this character. Alright. Next up, we come to Lucas here. And so Lucas is essentially a like AoE specialist. He's really good at farming stages very, very quickly. And he also generates bullets just like his brother Luke. So if you do have Luke and Lucas, they do work incredibly well together. But I don't want to necessarily recommend a 5-star character. That said, Lucas is also very expensive. So in order to use a lot of his skills, they're going to cost you like 1 or 2 action points, and the cards that they generate will also cost action points as well. So like Lucas feels like he's tailor-made to play with Mika for the sustain and the extra AP, so that way he can, you know, kind of play flamethrower and then draw a card and then discard a card. I should also add that the only change with Lucas here is on flamethrower. They kind of reduce the damage ever so slightly. But overall, that's kind of it for him. You just want to play Lucas with Mika. And then I have Owen here just because, again, he's just another generic frontliner that does decent damage, right? And he also has an AoE attack, so kind of like Owen going Wind Slash into Lucas going Flamethrower or Flashbang is a very, very quick and easy way for you to clear the floor and just move on. So if you just want somebody who's like a quick AoE farmer, something like Lucas, Owen, Mika is a pretty decent team for that. After that, we come to Maribelle, and the only change to Maribelle is that her Wolves Dome, I think is what it's called. Let me double check the name of this here. Yeah, Wolves Dome. This gives only 1 counterattack now instead of 2, like it did in the beta, but otherwise, she's pretty much exactly the same. And just like with Magna, Maribelle goes basically with anything. There's not a single team composition that Maribelle doesn't function well in. She provides DPS, good sustain, makes your team hard to kill, gives defense breaking consistently. Basically, if you want a just general all-use character, then Maribelle's one of the better ones that you could choose in the game. I know that's going to make some people happy because some people are just here to draft high booba score units, and she's probably the highest one. And again, just like Magna, she slots into basically everything. Speaking of which, we could kind of just move right on to the next one. Mika, you probably already seen if you've been watching the video the whole way through up until this point. Mika basically just slots into every single team comp in the game. There are sometimes going to be characters that are a bit better, like I think Cassius, Nia, and also Ray have higher ceilings than Mika. I think once we get to the end game, they will kind of overshadow her because they are more specialists. They are better in their niches, and I find that difficult games usually require specialized teams, specialized decks in order to function super well. But for the early game, for now, Mika is just generically good in almost every single team composition that you can think of. After that, we come to Beryl, who we already talked about a little bit here with Khalipe and some other teams throughout the video. But for Beryl here, I like Beryl, Maribelle, and then also Mika. So basically, Beryl is a high, single target damage character, and her key mechanic is the fact that she gets bonus damage if cards with retain sit in her hand for at least one turn. She'll essentially get a extra attack on any of her moves that have retain if they've been sitting in her hand for one turn. So she does big damage, but it's inconsistent and it takes time to set up. So in order for you to kind of set up, you need a tank like Maribelle to buy you some time. And then once you finally have, opening found or charge shot, or like you use heavy weapon specialist to generate multiple charge shots in your hand, you're gonna need a lot of extra AP in order to cash out to do that big damage, which is why Mika is here for the extra action points. Next up, we come to Cassius, and he's basically just really good at making things very consistent. If you're looking for just kind of like a starting team to play with him, it's probably going to be Nia, Cassius, and Tressa, or Owen. And they're basically the same exact style of team comp. Cassius finds you the specific payoff for a card like Tressa, like her unsheathed daggers, or Owen with like his AoE attacks or his ultimate. Anything that you're looking for to find specifically, Cassius will help you find it. And for whatever reason, if you don't find the Cassius cards to find it, or you don't find the Tressa unsheathed dagger or like the Owen AoE attack, then you simply just use Nia to kind of filter through the deck and find the card that you need specifically. Next up is Owen, who you probably noticed we mentioned a lot throughout this video if you've been watching the entire time. He's surprisingly competent in the fact that he is a good single target damage dealer that provides a good amount of tankiness to the entire team. He also has good AoE damage, and he can also recur one of his cards over and over again for bonus damage. Now, as for how you play him, it's pretty much the same as the Cassius team. I think this is probably his best starting team overall. Essentially, he's going to be the primary carry of the team. He's going to put out damage, generate shields, big AoE damage. And the key card here is Wind Charge. You use this in order to generate extra attacks, do more damage. And you use things like Wind Riding in order to pick it back up once it's in your discard pile. How do you get it into the discard pile? Well, either one, you play it and then get it back on a subsequent turn, or you use Nia to discard it for various different effects to generate value. And if for some reason it's not in the discard pile or you just can't find it, that's when you use Cassius's cards in order to kind of pitch your hand and find the card, or tutor it up specifically with the card Joker. And finally, the last character to talk about here in this video is going to be Ray, who I think is the most criminally underrated, underappreciated, underplayed character in Chaos Zero Nightmare. Ray is effectively a build your own support that does everything for the most part. She can be an off DPS. She can be your main healer. She can be your main supporter that buffs up damage. She has things like card selection as well as like card or deck thinning. Deck thinning is a very, very important part of any deck builder. If you have snack time in your deck and you have the correct epiphany, for example, I have this one with exhaust 2, so I get 2 uses of snack time. I duplicated this. This allows me to have essentially 2 cards in my deck that gets rid of the basic cards that I don't want to draw. So on a long enough battle, I'm only drawing pure gas. I have exactly what I need at all times, and I'm just firing on all cylinders. So it's a very, very powerful and underappreciated effect. And you have things like dark condensation to buff up your key finishers to do more damage with them. And then she also has like other crazy builds where you can buff up Predator Strike to make her just be a massive nuke. Strike of Darkness buffs the basic attack cards in your hand, and it has epiphanies that let you kind of play out your entire hand of all the basic cards for free. So she's like super good with characters like Mei-Lin and Beryl. Just there's a lot of flexibility in this character, and I really don't understand why I don't see her more often. I get it that Mika is very easy to play, very newbie friendly, but I really think that if you invest a lot of time into Rey, you will be pleasantly surprised with how good this character is, especially when you consider things like her manifest egos, which give basically free attack to your entire team for just existing. And that's pretty much it for every single combatant in Chaos Zero Nightmare. These are all my day 1 teams. Hopefully you enjoyed them. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me a question about them down in the comments section below. Oh, I'm a little tongue-tied. Anyways, that was a long video. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later now.